To stand before you to talk about anything to such a prestigious group that is doing the real serious work of saving lives and improving lives, right? Of people who are in some way struggling with their emotional and mental health. So just know that I exist only because of the work that you do. So I like to explain NAMI as like the mayonnaise in the sandwich. We're not the meat and we're not the bread, but we're the mayonnaise. We help stick it all together. Families sometimes go through this journey of denial, say it ain't so. Do I have any witnesses? Because I've spent quite a bit of time there. Say it's gonna go away, this kid is gonna straighten up, but then they don't, and then you find yourself in the journey. So my journey started for me with a son who was born different, period. And so no matter how many times I called the hospital and I said something is wrong, they said, oh gosh, we've got an anxious mom on the phone. As a matter of fact, 4 years into it, when we transferred our medical records from the Rio Grande Valley to Houston so that we could get into the medical center, I got a glimpse at my records and it actually said anxious mom in the jacket of my son's medical records. His first diagnosis, now I started yelling, there's a problem, probably a week after he was born. I thought he may have had celiac disease, something. I was in the library just reading every book I could read. But at age 4 and 1 week, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So when you tell a mom that a kid is born with a brain tumor, you know, they think instant death, right? Like he's not long for this world. So it took me a while to kind of pick up the pieces and stop crying after that. But he doesn't have a brain tumor. And the reason that I'm still in this work now, 25 years later, is because parents are still struggling to get an accurate diagnosis. Moms are still being blamed for their kids' issues, either by the dad or society or themselves, the blame, shame, and guilt, which I usually talk about. So I'm normally speaking to families who, for whatever reason, have a hard time reaching out to you. They don't wanna. Maybe they've had a bad experience, or maybe they're having a hard time overcoming their own shame and grief. Whatever it is, NAMI is a peer-led grassroots organization, the largest in the country. We have over 1,100 affiliates across the nation, and we're all kind of a bridge by this national team in Virginia. It started in 1975 nationally, but in Houston, we've been here since 1988, and I still actually walk into places and go, how many of y'all have heard of NAMI? And people don't raise their hand. And that's kind of good if you don't need us. It's bad if you need us, right? So we hope to partner with people like you to say to families or individuals who have their own diagnosis, you probably want to see NAMI. My son was going to school in Fort Bend for the first time, and they have this thing called the ARD meeting, admission, review, and dismissal meeting, to see if kids are eligible for special ed. Well, you know, my son was y'all ever read the story of Helen Keller? That was my son. He had no receptive language, no expressive language. It looked like savages were raising him, but it was us, you know. But if he hit 6, then 7, 8, 9, 10 were coming, right? So I have this kid that nobody really wants to take care of. They don't know, they're kind of afraid of him. He can flip over people twice his size, and he was only, 6 or 7 at the time. But I bumped into a wonderful man at Lantern Lane Elementary. He was the chair of the special ed department, Michael Biasini, and he said, you know what you need, Miss Hudson? You need NAMI. I said, what's a NAMI? And the rest is history. 2 months later, I was in his class, free class, still free today. Back then, it was called Visions for Tomorrow. That same class is called NAMI Basics now. We have classes for parents of adults who may have experienced a mental health crisis. We have parents for veterans called Homefront. We have peer-led classes for people in recovery. We also have support groups. Bless you. We do educational conferences. Sometimes we've got a conference coming up in August, and so I'm gonna invite everybody. Who has the sign-in sheet? I'm gonna invite everybody here to this conference. It's called Pathways to Hope. Oh, that I know, that's Eric's conference. But we have another conference just for local, just Houston pastors and faith leaders and that kind of thing. And the reason I want to invite you, aside from your own faith and your own faith walk, is that many times the clergy do not know who the providers are. right? And so I've been very invested in supporting that bridge. As a matter of fact, I got a program for it. It's called, what's it called? Bridges to Care? Bridges to Care. So we're duplicating a program in NAMI Greater San Antonio called Bridges to Care to kind of connect that void. But today, let me get to today. I just wanted y'all to know that my journey started as a client. I was the one who needed a provider. I didn't know how bad I really needed it. I went on to have another child diagnosed with ADHD, the inattentive type. Her nickname in school was a fairy. So she's very disciplined, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Whew. But she deals with the what ifs, and that is still there. She is 29 today. And she's still, Mama, what if? I'm like, oh, let me call you back when I got time. and then we have another son that was diagnosed in the 7th grade. We knew there was a problem there too, because you know, anybody who just says no to everybody all the time, honey, let me train you how to use the restroom without diapers. He says, I got it. And from that day on, he had it. I said, honey, let me send you to the Y so you can learn how to swim. I got it. I said, you don't have it. He said, but I will. He became a lifeguard 10 years later. Never took a class in swimming because he got put out of every class. I said, we're gonna teach you how to drive when you're 19 because we don't think you're responsible enough at 18, so we're gonna wait till 19. And at age 14, I got the letter in the mail from the Harris County Transit Authority that I had a ticket for being on the toll road. But you know, they take a picture. So when I went to second page, there he is, 14 years old, driving my car like a professional with no license and no, you know. So we had to have a long talk about that. But this kid who said I got it, he is now a building inspector for Harris County. He works for the County Corps of Engineers. And he said, I got it. I said, you need an engineering degree. He said, no, I don't. Mm-hmm. When he applied for the job, I was a little curious. They wanted his, all the places he had worked before, they wanted the offer letter. They wanted a check stub because they didn't believe he was making the kind of money he was making. They wanted his, all of his previous supervisors. Since 18, he trained himself to get certified as a commercial and residential building inspector, and he's working with professional engineers, you know, though he's not an engineer. And he's training other, and he's the president of what? The International Certification, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. So just be careful about how we train people that they shouldn't be the way they are, because sometimes the way they are is just the way they need to be, provided that they're on this side of the law. Any officers in the room? Here we go. I'm gonna keep his name private because you may have already met him. So today I'm talking about burnout prevention. A lot of us do this work because we're passionate. I don't know if I signed up for this voluntarily. I was actually going to school to raise my GPA to go to law school. And I did manage to finish that master's degree in public affairs, and I marched across the stage with said baby who they said had brain tumor, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if anybody really signs up to be a peer-led, you know, meaning that I'm a family member or a person in recovery. I don't know if anybody signs up to be in my group, but it has become my ministry. And because of that, it can blend in with my personal life. I could actually get up, look over here. I could actually get up and start working and go to bed and still be in the same place, still working, because I'm so passionate about it. And so someone fusses at me about that. But I'm here today to remind not only you, but to remind myself why it's important to pay attention to not burning out. Mental health conditions, we are not exempt. So because the statistics are clear, you know, 1 in 5, since COVID, they're talking about 1 in 3 people could be impacted by a mental health condition in any given year. And many of you, I'm preaching to the choir, know these statistics like the back of your hand. Somewhere between 14 and 24 is where most people are gonna, if they're gonna have a lifetime chronic diagnosis, then it's going to show up in those years. 50% by age 14, 75% show signs and symptoms by age 24. And you also know that suicide, if it's not addressed, see, these are things we know. We know these things. I'm going to try and share a little bit that you may not know. In the clinical community, and this is since COVID, right? 49% of physicians are reporting feeling burned out, and male, and then 56% female. So there's a higher incident, and if I look in the room, there's more women in here than men, right? So there's a higher incidence, and I don't know what that is. Maybe because our sense of responsibility is strong. No, I'm joking. But personally, you tell me personal responsibility. But these are the stats. You know, when it gets into more specialized medicine, those stats go up. Over 60% of physicians report being burned out for more than a year. So that means that we suck it up and we keep going. We show up every day like nothing is wrong. We stuff it down, stuff it. And what are the triggers, you know, that are creating, you know, what are the reported triggers? I'm gonna say reported because I guarantee you there's probably triggers that we have that we don't even talk about, right? One of them is I-10, the other one is 45. The other one is 288. Oh, I do anything not to get on the freeway these days. And then now they're tearing up all the streets. You just can't. Look, the proverbial they. But some of the triggers noted are administrative tasks take longer. You know, if you don't report it, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. And as those dollars get smaller and smaller and smaller for the work we do, there's more documentation, more statistics we've got to feed into, more paperwork, more. Long hours, workplace disrespect. Do y'all feel a pushback on the counseling or mental health world? Yeah, there's a pushback. You know what, I'm sorry? There's a stigma. Well, the stigma has always been there, right? I just need to pull myself together, but I'm wondering what the stigma is like with just the people in the room. Look, I'm not looking at anybody. And then when you look at just clinical groups, clinicians, not doctors, and then also nurses, 49% of all clinicians have reported experiencing burnout. The VA data shows that U.S. healthcare workers, 46% often feel burned out today compared to 2018. Before COVID, it was 32%. So it's growing. That's the point here. And then, listen, stats don't mean a whole lot to me, especially when they apply to me. But there are two people in this room today. You want to know who you are? Half of you are thinking with the right side of your brain, and half of you are thinking with the left side of your brain. The left is logic and data, and you must have the data or you won't believe anything else I say. And then the other half is emotion and experience, which is why I pulled you into my family story. I would have had their pictures up here had I thought about it before right now. But I try to pull both. This is called Building the Porch, and I'm just trying to get you both in to kind of hear what I'm going to say, because a lot of this we already know. I'm really reminding us, and I'm also sharing that we're not exempt, that the issues that are common to man are common to us in the room. That even though we're the frontline workers, we're the providers that everybody calls to look for rescue without resource is no help to us, right? You can know all the resources in the world, but if you yourself needs rescuing and you don't say so, what point are the resources? So why are we here? Clinicians are suffering from burnout. We are facing higher rates of depression, okay? I don't want anybody to quit. Don't go back to your companies today and say I'm done. But we are facing higher rates of depression, anxiety, substance use, physical health issues, and even suicidal thoughts. Were y'all here in Houston and reading the news earlier this year? I think maybe it was April or May. April. We lost, 6 officers in 2 months? 3 male, 3 female? These are the heroes. But what happens when you take off your cape? We have clinicians that are, the reports are indicating 2.5 to 4 times higher suicide completion rates. Well, they're talking about female physicians. And so it was interesting to me in those 2 months that it was half and half. It was 50% female and 50% male. But I'm gonna say this to you, you don't care who it is if it's somebody that you love and appreciate. So the stats only go so far. The rest of it is where the rubber meets the road. Mental health workforce shortages also exacerbate the pressure. Caseloads are bigger. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not doing case management anymore. Because caseloads have just gotten ridiculous. There's no way you can humanly carry the load of the, and then here's the main thing, and I don't know if any of you can relate to this. After all the work you do, After all the talking, after all the negotiating, after all of the heart-to-hearts, that person says, you know what, I'm just not ready. And then they walk away, you know, against medical advice, yeah, MDA. And you're like, what is it called? Okay, that right there. So you know, to me, the thing that keeps me hopeful is the starfish story. Y'all know about the little man, the guy that was walking with his son and all the starfish. If you can just throw one starfish back in the water, you may not save all of them, but you don't save any of them if you're not healthy, right? So the aftermath of COVID-19, global, and y'all know COVID is bad. Like, people are still suffering and dying with COVID. They just don't talk about it as much. They talk about other things, right? Global conflicts, racism, racial injustice, inflation, climate, Kerrville. I can't even watch the news. I had to tell this one to stop telling me how many people have died. Because, you know, the number keeps going up. And I don't even, not that I don't care, I care too much, and it's kind of hard for me to focus at work when I'm worried about what's going on in Kerrville. I mean, it's just a major atrocity, but they're all weighing on all of us, even if you don't acknowledge it. So I think this weekend I'm going to acknowledge it, but right now I'm going to keep going so I can keep going through this week. The problem is, I can say today I'm not going to listen to the news, right? I got a grant report due tomorrow, and I do. I'm gonna do my grant report today, and I'm gonna give my brain, my body, time to heal and recover. I'm gonna go through some process. I'm gonna find something that's healthy for me, and I'm gonna play with my grandbaby and do like weird stuff, pick stuff off the ground and look at it, you know, just, she does weird little games. And she laughs so hard. Oh, she laughs and then you laugh too. But I'm gonna find a way to handle some of the stress that is working on my body. The problem is, many of us don't do that. Often people don't recognize the symptoms of toxic or prolonged stress, and they adopt a coping mechanism, or they just say, you know what, I'm just busy right now, and this, you know, I should be able to. How many use the shoulds? Not on your clients, but you use it on yourself, right? I should just pull myself together. I should just go shopping. You know, I should just go happy hour with Brooke and her friends. Long-term something, I should do something, right? But long-term stress can lead to mental health challenges, right? Make us feel more sensitive. And if you live with anybody that you love, they already know when you're being more sensitive. It can have broader impacts on your general outlook on life. It could also have, you can start having issues with your body. Your body will break down. I don't know about y'all, but as I get older, like, different things hurt. And like different things that I could do, I can't do anymore. And so anyway, I've been going to the gym. I'm 2 weeks in. Thank you. I need all the encouragement. Yes, I absorb all of that. Yes. All of that. Because somebody else is using shame. So I need encouragement.
It's active encouragement.
That's right. That's right. It's active encouragement. Whatever. Somebody look that up. Active. Coping with long-term stress requires a different set of skills than adjusting to temporary stressors. The issue is then we think everything is temporary. I mean, if you could just put like a coin in a glass every time you think it's temporary, and then see how fast that glass fills up. It's not temporary. It's prolonged. It's repetitive. It's over a long period of time. And your body, have y'all read that book, Your Body Keeps Score? Yes. Your body keeps score, right? It doesn't forget. And so one of my little coping strategies is right here on Studemont, right around the corner from this building. I go to a reflexologist, and I think they know exactly where all my stress is kept. And that's all I'm going to say about it. There's other manifestations of like emotional and mental imbalance, and you know, if you were talking to a client, you'd have no problem pulling this up. You'd say, okay, lack of physical activity, maybe you didn't smoke and now you do. Alcohol, maybe you didn't and now you do. Drug use, and I'm not even talking about the illegal stuff. Have y'all ever met somebody who carries a whole over-the-counter OTC pharmacy in their bag? It's usually one person at every church and every job. If you need something, if you need a tongue Tums, a Rolade, if you need Alka-Seltzer, you know why you're laughing? Because you know who that is. Their purse is this big, and they got everything stuffed in there, from Kleenex to Band-Aids. They could probably do stitches in a tight. But that's not healthy, because they're medicating for every single sign that their body is giving them that they're trying to manage prolonged or toxic stress. Then there's absenteeism. Y'all know what that is, right? Where they don't come to work. Have y'all heard of presenteeism?
Yeah.
That means they come to work, but they're not doing nothing. Do you know that's a headache? How many of you manage staff? That is a headache when you manage staff. They come to work every day. And you're like, are you sure you don't need some time off? No, I'm fine. No, you're not. No, you're not. And then where's the line? How do you tell people, no, you need to take some time off? You know? And then the productivity of the team goes down because they're mad. They're like, we tired of carrying, what's your name?
Ryan.
We're tired of carrying Ryan. Ryan come in looking good, clean, matching, but he ain't working.
That's
It's
right.
called, and I'm picking on Ryan.
Sometimes it's true.
Oh, you know. Severe obesity. So, you know, as you get older, see, I can tell you things. You know, who ever heard, you know, like, this is my good eye, you know, or this is my good knee. I have lived long enough now. I got a good eye, and I got a bad eye. I have a good knee, and I have a bad knee. And under stress, the bad one shows up more often. So you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, you know, you done put on a few pounds. I'm like, okay, now hush your mouth. Respect your elders. These doctors are younger and younger. And so we had to investigate. I said, okay, I'm going to commit. So how much have I lost already? 31 pounds? I'm committing. I am committing. I kind of did a little, what do you call it? A relapse. Had a little relapse for the drug world. My drug of choice is sugar and bread.
That's right.
Yeah. I've learned to not even ask my drug of choice. When I interview people, I say, what is your drug of use? Which one do you use? Because I use bread and sugar. Which one do you use? Chronic diseases, because these things can have a ripple effect, right? You can have mental and emotional stress, and then it creates one problem, and then that problem creates another. Like you cannot just gain weight. You can then start having issues with blood sugar regulation and all that. And so it can just go trickle from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And so before you know it, you're like, well, I'm a this. No, you're really just stressed out and never addressed it. So basically, if you're in this field, if this is your line of work, then for every additional stressor that you notice is prolonged just because it's the job, then you're gonna have to add another intervention. And honestly, that's what I've been doing. I did a presentation like this for pastors in Huntsville, and man, I wasn't expecting that many people to show up. I was pretty intimidated. It was a lot of pastors, and one of them in the back said, little lady, what do you do to manage your stress? And I thought, wow, no one's ever asked me that. So I kind of, you know how they say, fake it till you make it? So the only thing I was doing at that time when he asked that question, I was traveling a lot for work. And so I said, well, you know, I like to get on an airplane. So that's what I'm doing for stress, but that's all I could come up with. That question resonated with me so strongly that I have been adding little things. Have y'all ever heard of this author by the name of James Patterson? I'm trying to read every book. That's one of my favorite things to do. I don't know if I'm ever going to get all of them.
That's my favorite, so I have plenty.
Oh, really? Because I'm missing some of the numerical ones. Yeah, okay, all right. But anyway, he's really good. Every chapter is like 1.5 pages. So I feel like I'm a fast reader. Yeah, I can read like 10 chapters in one sitting. But it's really good. It's like a whodunit kind of book, which I'm finding that's what I like. I told you about the Studemont people, the memorial reflexology people around the corner. They seem to find places you didn't know you had. And I'm like, okay, that's enough. That's enough of that. I'm paying you, so that's enough. But I go back because even though it hurts a couple of days, I feel better overall. But I have added little things that I can do that I have to do. Even this gym thing. The gym thing is probably the most time consuming. I don't like that part about it. But if I don't do it, what I'm rushing off to, which is work, I won't be able to work. Right? Oh, is it raining? Oh, me and the baby gonna walk in the rain. We gonna walk in. Y'all, I grew up in Houston by the railroad tracks, and the railroad tracks have rocks and that steel. And when it rained, that was a smell you do not forget quickly. And so when she wants to walk in the rain, I take her to where the railroad track used to be. And it's kind of our thing. So that's, see, I'm knitting my support system in this presentation because already some of you have said, I already know everything she's saying. And I got it under control. And then there's another group of you saying, look, I get my nails done. I take off the third Friday of every month and I'm good. But I'm here to tell you that the more stress we have in our society, stress is not just personal stress, individual trauma. Some of our traumas are community-based. Some of our traumas are society-based. I mean, just listening to the debates about the Republicans and the Democrats and the others, the independents, that's enough to put stress. I mean, just thinking about what's happening with the IRS, that's gonna come back to get us. I don't care if they laid off half of them, they're still gonna come get us. So there's all types of stress. The issue is we dismiss it and we act like it's not bothering us until that bill comes in the mail or something else takes us off guard that we didn't anticipate. And life has a way of what? Lifing. Y'all like that? That's from my children. They taught me that. Life. They say life be lifing. But suicidal ideation and the reason for the unsafe sex is really all unsafe activity. Driving too fast, driving recklessly, drinking in public, things that we do to kind of test those limits when we know we really shouldn't. Those types of behaviors come when there's imbalance in our emotional life. So it may not be like who you really are, but when things are really pushed too far for us, we will do things that are unseen. People can also convince themselves that this is just for a little while and it's gonna pay. How do we say this too? Oh, and don't let us be religious, because we got a scripture for all of it. Listen, this too shall pass. Give me another one. It's just my time and my season, because there's a time and a season for what? All things. Yes, for everything. And so we'll start putting scripture on it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, the word has a way of doing things that is helpful that nothing else can do. And I'm going to share this with you. My dad was a Korean veteran, and the way he got out of the Army was his truck was blown up, and then he went into a hospital for a year. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be in a hospital for a year, but that could not have been good news back in the 50s, right? And so his first marriage did not work, so there had to be a story there that no one ever told me about. And then he was in the 17th graduating class of the Houston Police Department when there were no black people on the police department. And I didn't find out until his last years that he couldn't arrest anyone, he couldn't drive a car, he couldn't carry a gun. And if someone was unruly and they weren't black like him, he had to call someone. So guess who knew that? The criminals. So guess who told him that? The criminals. He said the day they changed that law and he could arrest somebody for being drunk and disorderly, and then they said, you can't touch me, he had a good time throwing that joker in the back of the So, yeah, I remember when I was really young, he would take me to the police station, my absolute favorite place. Why? Because the K-9 unit was there. See, back in the day, the whole police department was like one building with like 3 floors and a jail on top. So you got to see everybody, the homicide people, the detective people, everybody was there, including those dogs. And the funny thing about the dogs is the floors were marble. Have y'all ever seen a German Shepherd walk on a marble floor? It is the funniest thing. Yeah, it's the funniest thing. They can't make it. And so, but the funny thing about that building, On every floor, it had 2 water fountains. And it had one like adult size, and it had one just big enough for me. And so I never really noticed where the bolts had been in the wall and they had been broken off. So there had been signs over these water fountains. But I asked my dad one day and I said, look, when are they gonna fix the refrigeration in this water fountain? I'm tired of drinking hot water. It tastes like bath water, you know? And he said, he did not ever tell me. Do you know, I was a grown woman before I realized that there were colored and non-colored signs in the police station. I didn't know how prevalent. So I'm bringing that up because he came through a time that was very different for him. So now that explains my next piece. He went to church. We went to church from 9 o'clock, 9:50. He was superintendent. I don't know why he volunteered for all these extra jobs, but he was a superintendent of Sunday school. So we were in church from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. 9:15 was Sunday school, 11 o'clock church, 3 o'clock they always had some kind of annual day. I can't even get through them all. And then 6:15 BTU, and then night service at 7:30. And if someone got baptized, you were there even longer, because then my mama was volunteering to help the people who were in their wet clothes getting back into their dry clothes. And then Monday night was prayer night. Tuesday night was teachers meeting. Wednesday night, why he volunteering again? And he's watching the parking lot while all the little people go in there to sing who can't sing. Okay? So we're in church all Wednesday night, listen to everybody sing, the women's chorus, the men's chorus, the combined choir, the young adult, all of those people. Then he found another church on Thursday. He went and joined their church on Thursday night for their prayer meet. You understand what I'm saying? We went to church on Friday, and if he couldn't find a church on Saturday, guess what he did? He built one of these, and we had a lectern, and we had church at home. And people came. Strange people with wigs and hats. And they would pray like God had to hear them right there from the living room. So we didn't have to sit into all that. They would let us go to our room, but we could hear every word. So it was like we might as well be just sitting right there. And we had to clean up everything for them coming, and then we had to clean up everything when they left. And y'all remember old furniture was heavy? Mm-hmm. So we had to move all those chairs back and everything. So that's how I grew up. But do y'all know what that was? That was Daddy handling his prolonged and toxic stress. That was what he did for his stress. And he must have had a whole lot of stress, because he did it every single day. But that was his coping. That was his free, I don't have to tell anybody where I work, what I got, you know. And I don't know if it was enough. Now, he did live to be a ripe old age of 93, but from 82 to 93, his brain was then suffering with untreated, undiagnosed issues. The medicine couldn't even touch it because he had gone so long without addressing any of it. And he was so angry, he would say, Angelina, you know, I never smoked and I never drank. Why is my body giving up on me? Because really, it was like having ALS. Everything just kind of shut down one at a time over this 11, 12-year period. And I'm pretty sure it was because of the stress. He just really never talked about it. And men that age don't talk about it. Why am I sharing it here? I'm sharing it because I want you to go home and find somebody to talk to. Somebody to share your life with that's going to be a secure attachment figure. And maybe not your own biological family, because sometimes your family gets sick of hearing it. Yeah. You know all the signs of stress and overwhelm. The problem is we don't always see all the signs in ourselves. I talk a lot about my doctor. Matter of fact, I got so mad at him one time I switched doctors. But you do need to find somebody who's going to tell you the truth. You need to find somebody. He kept saying, Angelina, if you don't get this blood sugar under control, we're going to cut off your feet and your legs. And he says, don't you like your legs? I said, yeah, but Chad, I'm tired of you saying that. You know? And so I found another doctor who talks to me in another way. She's no less astringent, but I'm much more compliant when you just give me the facts and stop threatening to cut off my legs and my feet. But, and guess what? All my numbers are under control. Because you have to get educated on what's going on with you. Everybody here is going to go through something. Everybody here is going to go through some kind of stress, and it's going to show up here. It's going to show up in the body. And I'm just saying, do something about it. So I'm gonna leave y'all with, I'm gonna get out of these stats, learn what to do. Number one, there's 4 things, because I'm sure y'all tired of hearing my stories. Science tells us that relationships are the #1 way to deal with the prolonged stress and toxic stress that we have in our bodies. It's the number one way. When we're understood by another person, a person is empathic with us. I'm not saying they fix our problems. I'm not saying they tell us what to do. I'm not saying they join our team and pledge to go and fight our demons and our dragons. No, but they show empathy. They just hold space. It was so funny. I heard that in a movie yesterday, and the man said, "What in the world is holding space?" But when we find someone that we can talk to that is really not trying to fix our issues, but just be there with us, to hear and support us, then guess what? New brain pathways are actually formed in our body. There's a researcher, his name is Dr. Louis Cozolino. He wrote this book called The Neuroscience on Education. And what he talked about is those that are in the helping fields, they're in the helping industry, nurses and social workers and people in these helping industries. The research found that they burn out quicker than anyone else because they have their own circus, the stuff regular people have, and they also carry the weight. Chaplains too, I'm sure, they carry the weight of other people's issues. But the brain, he says, is wired to connect. It's a social organ. And just like any other part of the body, it can get sick. But this is one of the number one ways that it can get better, and that's through our relationships. So empathic connection and relationships are ways to reduce stress, reduce our overwhelm, but not any relationship, right? It can't be the enablers, the people who are just, encouraging you to do things that are unhealthy, right? But build time. The number one thing I used to say all the time, especially to my dad who fussed about how much I worked, he would say, all work and no play makes John a... Yes, that's a real thing then, because I was like, who's Jack? And by this time he had that Alzheimer's pretty significantly, and I was like, you're just making that up. But I have learned how to find the time. I've reconnected with the 14-year-olds I went to high school with. Oh, that is all hilarity right there, just all fun stuff. Because when we get together, we're 14, 15, and 16 years old again. Just really bad stuff. I mean, not bad, but nothing I want to repeat. But practice finding people. Like there's a person who was really significant to me in college, and every now and then I'll just shoot her a text, or I find her on Facebook and shoot her a message, and then she sends me back all these hearts and smiley faces, Someone who knew me when I was not the CEO of NAMI Greater. You see what I'm saying? Someone who knew me when we were just having boyfriend issues, right? So, but find the time to connect with people, even if it's new people, even if it's just someone that you've met recently. The second one is positive thinking. Have y'all heard of positive psychology? Mm-hmm. Y'all have all heard of this? Okay. So some people subscribe to it, some people don't. And in a nutshell, positive psychology kind of stems away from traditional psychology. It's not about diagnosing and treating. It's more about identifying what will increase your well-being and just focus on that. I think there should be a balance between the two, but hey, this is Angelina talking. That is not research-based, but that's what positive psychology, it focuses on something called PERMA. Positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. But the only thing I'm focusing on here is just positive thinking, right? Identify or isolate when you're having really bad metacognition. And don't sit here and tell me you don't do it. Don't do that, because everybody has sat on 45, I-10, 288 at some point in time. And you've had thoughts about the person who wouldn't let you in, or the car that cut you off and wouldn't let you over. And I guarantee you those were not positive, like God bless you thoughts. And so, but sometimes we can have new news, or even dealing with a person who's not being receptive to treatment or anything we say, or be a child that you've given birth to and you don't know why they're not picking up the phone and answering anymore. You can have some negative thinking. And so this type of positive psychology says to isolate that thought and then change it. So it's being hyper-focused on the way you think and what you're thinking. Another part of this is just making a tangible effort to smile more. I was listening to this one researcher that says that when you smile, your glands actually secrete an oil. I know, and it's supposed to make you younger. I'm buying it, put that in a bottle. Reframe your situation, keep a gratitude journal. Take time to picture yourself in the best way possible and focus on your strengths. But this is a field of what's called positive psychology. Look it up, but find 2 or 3 things that you can do for you, things that work for you. And then, let's see. So the research states, one of those ways is meditating. And the research states that people who meditate on positive thoughts start feeling more upbeat emotions each day. And I was listening to Steve Harvey. You know, he's this great psychologist in comedy. And he talks about how when he was living in his car, he would write 300 things that he wanted to achieve, and he would just meditate on those things. So every time, I'm a big scriber. I always take notes. I have 1,000 notebooks. But every time I get a new notebook now, I number in the back of the notebook 1 to 300. I have not found 300 things I want yet. It takes me a long time. I don't know if I'll ever get to 300, but you can try. You know what I'm saying? You can sit and just meditate on all things. The scripture even tells us what to think, right? Think on all things that are lovely, all things that are kind, all things that are pure. So there. You know, I always say if it's good, it's God. So maybe positive psychology is right there in the scripture anyway, right? Shifting from I wanted to add this because this is new, and I just added this morning because it's something I practice. So affirmations were all the big thing. How many of you do affirmations, or you've heard of affirmations, right? Do you ever tell people to write down some affirming thoughts and kind of rehearse them in the morning? Well, guess what? I heard someone say try something different, because if you have an inner child that is still loud, like if you have an inner child voice from back in the day that still says like, okay, I want to lose 20 more pounds. You know, you're not gonna give up chipless donuts. You're not gonna lose that 20 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you can have an affirmation, but that inner voice will come back with something negative. There's a way to beat it so that it doesn't happen. You want to hear what it is? To shape it as a question. So I've been going to the gym for 2 weeks. You know what's kept me going every other day for 2 weeks? Girl, why you love going to the gym? You just love, and why do you lose so much weight so quickly? Just working on 3 little machines. And look at those muscles. Why do you have bigger muscles than everybody else in the gym? So I do my affirmations now, but it's a question. And when you shape your affirmation in a question, the inner child voice does not pop up. Okay, you don't believe me? Try it. I'm gonna put my email up here. Y'all better tell me what happened. Okay, and then these are easy. Connect and co-regulate. Connect means it's more than just connecting with friends, one or two friends, or 1 or 2 times. It's really thinking. So my dad passed 2 years ago, and my mom, 53 years married. Guess who was a big part of her life? My dad. Very domineering personality. She didn't go anywhere if she didn't go with him. And so what we did was this: connect and co-regulate. I said, grieving is a process. You're probably going to grieve for the next year. I didn't know it was going to be the next 3 years, but she did. And so what's been very, very helpful is she wrote down all the people that she could go to lunch with once every 2 weeks. Maybe people she had never been to lunch with ever before. And so that's what she's doing. She's reaching out, trying to build those connections, because if you're married, sometimes your life gets busy and you don't make all those connections anymore. So she's having to re-knit those. So we call it her web of support. Connect and co-regulate. Also, building check-ins. Set a time where you're asking yourself, how do you feel and what do you need? And you can write those 2 questions down, because many times we'll ask, how do I feel? But we don't ask, what do we need? And the need part does one thing very well. It takes you from your emotional side and into your thinking side, right? So if you ask yourself, how do you feel? Because sometimes I'm so angry I want to spit it. And so then I'm thinking, okay, so why are you angry? What do you really feel? Because anger is just kind of a visceral reaction. But if you actually, so what happened to me, I'll give you the story. Get in the car don't start. Oh my God, I'm late. And then I have all these people I want to blame that I'm late, right? And then I get in the car and the car doesn't start. So I put my hand on the dashboard and I said, okay, what do you feel? Okay, I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling panicked because I have someplace to be, and now I don't think I'm gonna get there on time, and then. And so I said, okay, then what do you need? What did I need? What do you think I need if I'm supposed to be somewhere and I don't think I'm gonna be there on time?
Put your foot on the brake.
Well, it wouldn't even start. But what I decided I needed to do is I needed to call the people. So then that gave me something to do. I felt more in control, and I immediately calmed down. So you see the power of asking, what do you feel and what do you need? It takes you out of hysteria, and it puts you into a more regulated place. And then the next is rest and regulate. So my dad, even though we went to church all the time, he had days we couldn't go anywhere. It was like, okay, we're taking the day off. We're just going. And he was real big on vacation. Oh my God, we took road trips every single summer. I didn't know what dictated how long they were until we got older. He said, oh, when I ran out of money, we went home. And we didn't sleep in hotels. This was during the time when you could sleep in the rest area. We went to like one hotel in that whole trip. You know, I'm like, can we go to a hotel now? You know, anyway. But it's very healthy to unplug from absolutely everything and just rest. And so at times when my body is really speaking to me and it's not working right, I will take a speaking engagement out of town, add 3 days to it, and never get out the bed. Because, you know, someone else is paying for that round trip airline ticket, so at least I can kick in the hotel and rest. And nothing is better than going out of town, because, you know, like my family were like, oh, you're working? Okay, we're gonna let you go. And I just put the phone down and go turn back over in the bed. Because they don't know that I'm out of town. So rest and regulate. The regulate part is have something that you do where you have time each day to like check in. So when my kids were young, I told you I had one with autism. Well, I don't think I ever told you what his real diagnosis was. He was eventually diagnosed with autism. And so I have one son with autism. I have one son, we call him the Yahoo. He has bipolar on steroids and doesn't buy it. And then I have one, the anxious child. She has bipolar disorder now too, but it's anxiety driven. And so, but raising this character of a circus entertainment people in my house, I had to find a way to make it through each day. You wanna hear what I did? I learned it from another family, and I'm gonna share it with you. They said, create a sign, and if they don't know how to read, put it in pictures, but only knock on this door in the event of fire, vomit, or blood. They did knock on that door one time. It was blood, but that's okay. We lived through that. But I had, by a certain time at night, but 9:30 at night, I shut my door. That sign was on there. You don't knock on this door if it's not one of these pictures. Don't knock on this door. I am no longer mama after 9:30. I'm Angelina, and you better not use that name. And so, and that worked. So it was always me and Diana Krall in the bathtub at 9:30 at night. Not always, but at least I had my own time. So the takeaways here are, you know, find the time, connect, co-regulate, rest and regulate. These are things that we can do for free. We don't have to get another therapist. This is some more data on the summary of what I just said. I'll share this PowerPoint. This is the prevalence of all mental health conditions, and the only reason I added it here is because none of us are exempt. Even though we work in this field and we know as much as we know, it can still fall on any one of us. And then we have these reactions to it. And the first reaction is denial. So we're not exempt from that. How not to cope? Did y'all know there were glasses now that held a whole bottle of wine? I was really excited about that until I realized that wasn't healthy. So I don't own one. I'm not looking for one. I'm just saying. Things can be funny, but don't adopt negative things. You know when to get a professional. The other thing I do is I volunteer a lot. So if you ever want to volunteer with NAMI, we do presentations like this for populations. It doesn't have to be me. It could be any one of you. We do school intervention. We do support groups. We teach psychoeducation classes, and we provide the training for that. And we communicate all the time to our populations, never lose hope. So I'm gonna leave that here. You know, never lose hope. And this is a cheat sheet. Y'all know what this is? This is the 8 dimensions of wellness. This is what I use. And so now I'm peeling back the secret. This is why I will move all the furniture in the living room, paint the bedroom a new color, because it's one of the, it's under environmental. You can change your environment and change your mood. But all of these 8 dimensions of wellness are the go-tos that I use to keep myself stable. I handle a lot. I handle a lot in my own life, and then through NAMI, I'm listening to everything that goes on in a lot of other people's life. So you don't get through this unscathed, of course, without faith, but also these 8 dimensions of wellness, and one of them is spiritual. So I include it in my practice of self-care. So I'm sharing this with you, even though it wasn't a part of mine. And if y'all want to call me and tell me to talk shorter next time, that's who I am. But thank y'all.